if walking the runway is something that you want to do, I 100% support you going for it, but I am not going to be one to sugarcoat this industry. This is why a lot of you guys are subscribed to my channel, because I'm going to tell you like it is. Hey guys, it's Thomasina. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new, thanks for tuning in. My name is Thomasina, and I'm a model, content creator, among other things, based in New York City. And on my channel, I give you tips and tricks on how to break into the modeling industry, and even some videos on how to move to New York City. So if that's something you think you'd be interested in, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you know every time I have a new upload. It's about that time, guys. It's about that time. If you don't know what time I'm talking about, you might be on the wrong video. But 'tis the season of New York Fashion Week. Every year, twice a year in New York City, people come from all over the world to gather in the mecca of fashion, the city of dreams, the concrete jungle, to celebrate fashion and creativity in all of its glory. And while it is often a joyous occasion for most people, for models, it's a little bit of a different story. So in this video, I'm going to be spilling all the tea on what it's like to participate in New York Fashion Week as a model. Now this is my opinion, but I feel like New York Fashion Week, or really any fashion week, Paris Fashion Week, Milan Fashion Week, but for the sake of this video, New York Fashion Week is probably the most stressful time of a model's career. They call it Fashion Week, but really this is like a month-long process of preparing, casting, actually doing the show, going to events. So it is definitely longer than just a week, and it is, like I said, probably one of the most stressful periods of a model's career. Not only is this the most stressful time period, but it's also probably the most competitive part of the modeling industry. When it comes to casting for New York Fashion Week, this is probably going to be the largest pool of models to select from. I mean, you have thousands and thousands and thousands of models that are already living in New York City, and some that come into New York to cast for these shows. So now that's like triple the amount of talent that clients would have to select from, as opposed to just casting for people who already live in that area. So it's just like a melting pot of models from all over the world competing for the same job. You will show up to a casting and there will be like 1,000 other girls ahead of you, and you can tell that there are so many people there because once you get there, every casting is different, but for the most part, you get like a piece of paper with your name and your number on it. There were times where I would go to castings and I would be like number 502 or something, and there would still be like 1,000 other girls behind me. So it is definitely one of the most competitive facets of the industry. Another thing about New York Fashion Week, not only is it super competitive, but the Fashion Week season in itself can destroy your self-esteem. Although the industry has become more inclusive as a whole, the high fashion sector of the modeling industry is probably still the most discriminatory when it comes to shape, height, measurements, even ethnicity and race. You're showing up to these castings and immediately you're comparing yourselves to all the other models there. They're all taller than you, they're all way skinnier than you, they all have an edgier look than you, they're all a different ethnicity than you, they all maybe look a little bit foreign or have a quirky accent or just something that makes them different, and you're comparing yourself, and then you end up not feeling as good about yourself. You feel like your chances of booking the job are lower, and then when you actually get to cast, by the time you get in front of the casting director and the clients, you've beat yourself up and now you're not performing at your best. So having to have your body nitpicked and scrutinized and compared to all these other models for like a month straight, twice a year, is debilitating to your self-esteem. So it will definitely eat you up and chew you out if you don't come in with like unimpenetrable, oh wow, what is that word? Untouchable confidence. If you come in with untouchable confidence, New York Fashion Week and the fashion season in general will definitely be a lot easier. Another thing that will ruin your self-esteem is that these casting directors and clients are looking at so many models when it comes to these castings, and they're coming in really already having an idea of what they're looking for their show. So they already know they want someone super skinny, they already know they want someone 5'10" or taller, they already know they want someone with long hair. Because if you look at these fashion shows, a lot of the girls look the same. So you're showing up to this casting hoping that you'll get selected when the casting directors already have an idea of what they're looking for, and you may not even fit the bit of what they're looking for. So really you're just wasting your time, but still you go because maybe there's a slight chance. And because these casting directors and clients already have in their mind the kind of model that they're looking for, there are some castings where you'd go and do your runway walk in front of the casting director and client, and they won't even look at you. They'll be head down while you're doing your thing, and then after you're finished, you're like, okay, thanks, you can go. I can't tell you the amount of times I've like watched a girl go before me, the clients are looking at her and like taking notes, and then I come out and they immediately see my stature, they see my height, like they see that I'm bald, they see my complexion, and then they're like, oh, we're not going to be interested in her. So I do my walk and they're just like head down. That is how I learned, after years of doing Fashion Week, that is how I learned what my likelihood of booking the job was gonna be. If I went out there and walked and immediately they were like head down, not really paying attention, kind of disinterested, I knew I didn't book the job. I knew they weren't interested. I knew I wasn't the kind of girl that they were looking for. So that's an easy telltale sign to know whether or not you are what the client is looking for. Another thing that kind of ruined my self-esteem when I was walking in New York Fashion Week was that a lot of these castings were requesting girls that were like 5'9", 5'10", and up. I knew I'm not 5'9", I'm not 5'10", but I would still show up anyways in hopes that they would see something in me and book me, because I do have a really, really good runway walk. I've been told that my entire life. But something that was debilitating for me was when I would go to a casting and then they would measure me. I don't think they do this as much anymore, but back in the day when you would cast for Fashion Week, they had a tape on the wall for like 5'9", their minimum height requirement, and they would line you up against that wall, and if your head did not touch that tape, they would just send you home. And there are some times where they take other measurements like your waist or your hips or whatever just to make sure you can fit the garments, but that height requirement was one of the most important requirements that these casting directors and clients were looking for. When I walked into the casting room and I saw that tape on the wall, I knew it was over for me. I knew it was over. So that was something else that kind of like put a damper on my spirit whenever I would go to these castings. I would see the tape on the wall and just immediately know it was not for me. I don't think you guys are ready for this one. This one is gonna shock the girlies. Runway shows don't really pay much, if anything at all. Runway modeling is probably the least paid facet of the industry. It's the least paid job you could do as a professional model. Honestly, most shows don't pay at all, but the higher the caliber of the client, the more likely you'll be paid, but it'll still only be like a couple of $100. And it's crazy because most people know these big fashion names like Gucci and Louis Vuitton and Prada, Chanel, Jacquemus, I hope I pronounced that correctly. All of these household names that have really amazing fashion shows every year. These are luxury brands. You would think that they're being paid so much money, but they're really not. Granted, there are a couple of clients that pay their models fairly well. I think Zimmerman is one of them. They're well known for paying their models a bit better. But for the most part in New York, the clients that are showing in New York, they don't really pay much, if at all. So yeah, take that out of your head. If you think you're about to be getting paid top dollar as a runway model, not gonna happen. Of course, you have larger names like the Gigi Hadids of the world, the Naomi Campbells of the world, the Bella Hadids of the world. They're probably getting paid a lot more than us common folk on the runway, just because the client is not only paying for their skill, they're paying for their name, their face to be represented on this brand. So that's why they're getting paid a little bit more. But if you don't have like that name attached to you, then again, you're probably not going to be getting paid as much on the runway. If you've ever attended a fashion show, it seems pretty organized from the outsider's perspective. You show up, you take your seat, you watch the models walk down the runway, and then you leave. Maybe go to an after party. But let me tell you, the actual process of what goes on to actually put these shows together is pure chaos, pure madness, pure stress. I don't know why these production teams do everything so last minute, but sometimes they will post a casting like the day before the show, and then they have to scramble to find all these makeup artists and hairstylists that can work on the girls that are booked for the show. So the Fashion Week scene is very last minute and very chaotic, contrary to what outsiders may see when they actually attend a show. I can't tell you how many shows I've like participated in where Backstage looked like an absolute madhouse. There have been numerous times where maybe they don't have enough makeup artists and hairstylists to do all of the looks for each model, so some models ended up having to do their own hair and makeup. I would always bring my own makeup supplies because I knew how common that would happen. Sometimes clients would book makeup artists and hairstylists that didn't know how to work with all skin tones and all hair textures, so you have some models coming out looking crazy. It is just very chaotic and very stressful and very last minute. Attending New York Fashion Week is so much better than like actually participating, and I say better in the sense that you're just not stressed. All you have to do is show up, look cute, and watch the show. It's such a load off your shoulders because this, again, I think is probably the most stressful time of a model's career, from running to 50 castings in a day to having your body scrutinized and looked over to your lower self-esteem. Every time like the month before Fashion Week season started, I was like super hard on myself, like what I was eating, making sure that I was like super slim so that my measurements were perfect for the clients that I would be casting for when New York Fashion Week came around. And I was just very, very hard on my body, and I know a lot of my other model friends did the same thing. Like that month before Fashion Week, you are just cleansing your body, making sure it's in tip-top shapes to give yourself the best chance of booking multiple runway shows to get your face out there. And the gag is, we as models are doing all this stuff, stressing ourselves out, throwing off our diet for like 2 seconds of FaceTime. I mean, we go to maybe like 50 castings and book maybe 3 shows. If you're lucky. For me, it was more, my ratio was like 50-1. Like I would book probably like 1 or 2 shows. But that's just because my body type is not like the typical runway model, so I was happy to even just book those. So it really is a tough season for models. And while I just shat all over Fashion Week and New York Fashion Week specifically, please do not watch this video and then say, okay, yeah, I'll never participate in New York Fashion Week. If walking the runway is something that you want to do, I 100% support you going for it, but I am not going to be one to sugarcoat this industry. This is why a lot of you guys are subscribed to my channel, because I'm going to tell you like it is. I don't want you guys to go out there all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed expecting to book every show that you go to a casting for. It is hard. When I was participating in New York Fashion Week, I was having the time of my life. I was stressed, but I was having fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed just being in the room. Years ago, I wouldn't have even been allowed in the room. I would have been told I'm too short, I have too much acne, I'm too thick, my butt's too big. They wouldn't have even let me in the room. So I am grateful to just have the opportunity to be in the room, and I would never deter anyone from not attempting to get in the room. I'm just telling you, you might have to push a little harder on the door to get there. So yeah, from the outsider's perspective, from the outside looking in, Fashion Week seems like glitz and glamour. You get dolled up, you look cute, you go to these shows, you mix and mingle with people, and then you go on about your life when Fashion Week is over and you do it all over again in the next season. So I hope this video provided a little bit more insight into what Fashion Week is actually like from a model's perspective. And if you guys have more questions about New York Fashion Week, how to find castings if you're not a signed model, or really any other modeling industry related questions, drop them in the comments below and I'll make a video on it. As always, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!
'Cause I'm not just a pretty girl, I'm more than just a picture. I'm a daughter and a sister.